Thank you, Priscilla.
Welcome, everyone, to Piggy Bank Essentials with Martin. Well, today we'll be talking about the gig economy. Please type in the chat your first name and what city you're zooming in from. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Piggy Bank Essentials with Martin. Today we'll be talking about the gig economy. Please type in the chat your first name and what city you're zooming in from. Hi, Ron. Welcome, everyone, to Piggy Bank Essentials with Martin. Today we're talking about the gig economy. So please type in the chat your first name and what city you're zooming in from. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Piggy Bank Essentials with Martin. Today we're talking about the gig economy. Please type in the chat your first name and what city you're zooming in from. We're up to 50 participants now, so welcome to Piggy Bank Essentials with Martin. Today we'll be talking about the gig economy. So please type in the chat your first name and what city you're zooming in from. Welcome, everybody, to Piggy Bank Essentials with Martin. Today we're talking about the gig economy. So please type in the chat your first name and what city you're zooming in from. All right, well, I think we're going to get started now. Welcome, everybody, to our quarterly program, Piggy Bank Essentials with Martin. I'm Vince King, and I'll be your host today, and I'm so glad you could join us. Before we jump in, I'd like to ask everyone to observe the following meeting agreements so everyone can have a good experience. Please keep yourself on mute. Let's not have distracting background noises. Use the chat to raise questions and add comments. Assume everyone's good intentions, using respectful language and tone. And please note, if your camera is on, we can see what's happening in your background. So if you're going to do something else, please turn your camera off. This meeting is being recorded, so those who can't be with us today can still view the program at a later time. So on our AARP California YouTube channel, and please click Got It when it appears on your screen. It should have appeared a second ago. If you're not familiar, AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people to choose how they live as they age. AARP works to strengthen communities and advocates for what matters most, with a focus on health security, financial resilience, and social connection. Today's program focuses on financial security, which is part of our social change agenda. Now, if you haven't already, please put your first name and what city you're zooming in from in the chat. Who's in the audience today, Jacqueline? Who do you see in the chat?
Oh, California is definitely covered, but we have people from everywhere. We have Carl from Atlanta, Georgia. We have Karen from Sacramento. We have Raju, forgive me if I'm killing your name, from Morgan Hill. We have Susie from San Francisco. We have Jarrett from Lathrop, California. We have Steve from Ridgewest. We have Teresa from Wisconsin. Cecilia from Lake Elsinore. We have a full crowd today looking to learn about the gig economy.
Wow. Well, welcome to everybody. And thanks, Jacqueline, for telling us who's here today. Today, we'd like to get warmed up a little bit with a couple poll questions. So we're going to launch these polls and ask you to quickly submit your answers. What would be a reason that you would return to work after retirement? So you can answer any of these or at the bottom. None of the above. So additional income, a sense of purpose, missing social interaction, pursuing a passion in a new field, all of the above, or none of the above. And if you have none of the above, you can put your answer in the chat. All right, so it looks like a lot of people want to get some additional income and or all of the above. So really interesting. We'll be talking about that later today. Now we'll go to our second poll. What skill have you used or plan to use to make money in retirement? Again, you can answer any or all of them. My artistic abilities, my experience from my career, a new skill that I learned in retirement, or other. All right, again, it looks like a lot of people want to use their experience from their career in retirement, as well as a new skill. And some people will use their artistic abilities. So thank you all for sharing that. Today is the second of our four-part series, Piggy Bank Essentials with Martin. Each quarter this year, we will focus on a different aspect of money management. We're excited to kick it off today with part 2, the gig economy. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest speakers, Martin Booker and Felicia Brown. Martin Booker is a program manager at AARP, where he leads various financial education initiatives about investing, Social Security, and budgeting. Martin has a master's degree in social work from the University of Connecticut and is a certified financial planner. Prior to coming to AARP, he worked in the nonprofit sector in Washington, D.C., and developed a passion for helping people improve their money habits. Today, Martin offers individual and group coaching services and classes and leads workshops about credit, investing, retirement planning, and other finance-related topics. His goal is to engage and educate people to better understand how not to just make money, but keep their money. Felicia Brown is a senior advisor at AARP. She has over 25 years of experience developing programs, managing projects, and strategic planning. In her primary role as lead for AARP's Entrepreneurship initiative, she provides strategic direction for national partnerships and national programming with a focus on women, communities of color, and veterans. Among her recent accomplishments are the creator of AARP's Meet the Founder, which highlights the stories of business founders, and the How She Did It podcast, featured in the AARP Work and Jobs video series. She also led the creation of the Small Business Development Resource Center for the 50+ community, which you can find at www.smallbizrc.org. Now, before we get started, here are some fun facts about the gig economy. So 88% of gig economy revenue comes from transportation services such as Uber and Lyft, and asset sharing platforms such as Airbnb. Florida has the highest proportion of gig workers in the United States, followed by California. The biggest reason to take on gig jobs is to boost their savings. And 64% of gig workers prioritize flexibility over higher pay. Now remember, please put any questions for Martin and Felicia in the chat during the program, and they will answer them during the Q&A session. Welcome, Martin and Felicia.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, Vince.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
And thanks for all of those great fun facts and all the information you share. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming today. We're so excited to be here, and I'm so excited about this conversation with Felicia about the gig economy, entrepreneurship, additional work, all the different things that we can do to make additional money in retirement, before retirement. You know, it's always a great time to make additional money if you'd like to, or just even if it's not just making additional money, like we said in the poll, taking on new social connections and all types of fun things like that as well. Just or getting back into social connections, or just pursuing your passion. You know, just still doing what you do because you love to do it. I also want to add one fun fact about Felicia. Felicia loves to travel. That's one of her things. I'm sure that there are a lot of other travelers out there in the chat. If you're a traveler, go ahead and just say, "Yep, that's me too." Her most recent and exciting place that she's traveled to was Ghana. So how was Ghana, Felicia? Did you have a blast?
It was transformational, is the word I'll use.
Exact same way when I stepped foot on the continent of Africa. When I went to Kenya, I had that exact same experience. All right, so I want to dive into this conversation because there's going to be lots of questions. There are people who want to know some amazing things about what we're doing. I see in the chat that there are some other travelers there as well. So you're in good company today, Felicia. So I want to start off with just a quick question. I know we're going to jump into the gig economy, but I also want to just quickly ask you about entrepreneurship, because you do so much work around entrepreneurship at AARP. So if you don't mind, just tell us what I want to hear about some of the stats and figures when it comes to entrepreneurship. And I'm going to share my screen because this was some really interesting information that you shared with me. So I want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to see it and hear about it. But you just tell us kind of why entrepreneurship, and tell us a little more about some of these stats that we're looking at here.
Sure. So, Martin, I just want to start off by saying, entrepreneurship takes on kind of many facets. And so while people here today are probably saying, I don't want to be like a small business owner, I want to just do something that as the poll indicated, add to my income and gain a sense of purpose. People are looking for that in very episodic ways. And so they don't always want to like commit to like a business and a business plan and a business designation. So doing a side gig or a freelance opportunity, as people might call it, is really, really a great opportunity to do just those things, as we've learned in the poll. And so my work really focuses on, one, providing information and education for people who might be interested in starting a business, but also helping people to understand there are other opportunities beyond that. And so we work very closely with the AARP Foundation to introduce those opportunities. They have a freelance resource center where people can get training, and they can think about how to parlay all of that years of experience into a freelance opportunity. But let me just take a little bit of a step back. So we all know that we just kind of emerge from this pandemic, this COVID, and really COVID really kind of allow people to take a step back themselves, to really say to themselves, what is it that I really want to do? You know, now that I've had this time alone, I've had this time to spend with my family, I've had this time to really sit back and be in my head about what work and life looks like. They have now decided, I want to do something on my own. I don't necessarily want a 9 to 5. And so as a result of that, the White House indicated that in 2021, there were 5.4 million new business started. And what that means is there were new business applications. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. That's 20% more than any year on record. And mostly those individuals were people of color. They were mostly women, because we know that women were mostly impacted by COVID, by being pushed out of the workplace or not being able to go into the workplace because of caregiving. And a significant number of them were the 50 plus. And so it makes sense that we will be talking about, you know, giving people opportunities and really helping people to realize what this next opportunity looks like for them. And so I always say, Martin, that the work that I do is we serve as a front door. And that front door is really kind of, once you come through the door, we give you the tools and resources that you need to arm yourself with that knowledge to make sure that maybe entrepreneurship, small business, freelancing is the right path for you. And then you take all of those information, all those tools, all those tip sheets, all those webinars we offer, and take that forward to a trusted organization, such as the Small Business Development Center or the Women's Business Development Center, or whomever that is in your local community that can give you that one-on-one, peer-to-peer information or technical assistance that is needed to help you get on your way. And so, as I said, a lot of people's motivation, they're ready to do their own thing. They're dissatisfied with corporate America. They're wanting to pursue their passion, as we heard. Many people were laid off. And, you know, while people traditionally retire, people really never retire anymore. They just kind of move on to their what's next, because we are living longer, we're living healthier, and we want to add value to our lives, our community, and our society.
Nice. Okay. That's well said. And I can see, you know, the motivations are definitely there. People are taking on new work, taking on exciting types of work, and doing it themselves instead of doing it for a company in a lot of ways. So that's awesome to hear. I did a quick breakdown, and I want to get some feedback from you on this, because this is how I've always kind of seen it in my head and visualized these different types of work. So there's part-time work, there's gig work, and then there's entrepreneurship, right? Just which entrepreneurship could be contracting for a big business or another small business and things like that. So when I look at it and I think about it, you know, the part-time work, that's when I go, you know, to maybe a company and I decide I'm going to work for you part-time. They give me a schedule. They tell, you know, they may in the traditional sense. We know that there are other types, but in the traditional sense with part-time work, I'm going to a company and I'm deciding to work for that company, right? It could be a national chain. It could be, you know, an in-person experience a lot of times. And with those, when it comes to that type of work, there's generally going to be less flexibility, right? I'm working a schedule that I'm given. They may say, we need you on weekends in the evening. So I'm working that time frame. But what I do know is that there's a real structured way of working. There's a training, things are going to be set up in a certain way. So I can go in and things are going to be set. I know what my pay is going to be. And typically they hired me for this position. It's not a matter of competing for that job. So it's kind of set up in that way, right? There are some pros and cons to that system, depending on your lifestyle and what you need. And then there's things like gig work, where I can, you know, just kind of set up through an app, or I can set up with a company And I take on work when I choose, right? So I can go and, bag groceries. I can deliver groceries. I can drive people around. I can go pick up items and deliver them for people. But I get to choose when I clock in and when I clock out, right? But there's a lot of us that are doing it, right? So everyone's set up to do it, but there's typically so many people that set up to do it that, they're not worried about when I want to clock in and when I want to clock out. So it's a little bit more of a saturated market. And then the pay is going to vary because depending on the distance, the amount of stuff that I'm picking up and things of that nature, they choose, the price point. They'll set a price point and then I get to choose or decide not to take that position. And the other thing about gig work is that there are many opportunities, right? And even outside of the traditional platforms, when we think gig work, like being a musician or using my skills to do other types of things where I just show up, I do my assignment, and then I go, right? So I always look at gig work as like ultimate flexibility. I look at part-time as structure and, a set schedule, even though, I may not decide the flexibility or the schedule, but it's structured in that way. I don't have to decide when I'm going. And then there's entrepreneurship, which is kind of a balance of the two, right? It's like I have some flexibility, but depending on my contract or where I'm working or what I'm deciding to do, I may have some set hours. But, as far as prep and things like that, I can do it at my own time. And then with entrepreneurship, the world is yours when it comes to what you do, right? You could create jewelry, you could knit scarves and sell them. You can, use your voice to do things. You could do voiceovers or other things. There's so many, the world's endless when it comes to that. So it's definitely based on your flexibility and your ideas. And then in a lot of cases, it can be based on your hours, depending on the type of job you got. How did I do with that breakdown? Or what do you think?
That was amazing, Martin. I couldn't have said it better. I could not have said it better. And, I actually did some research yesterday. And I think some Google, perfect here. And I also want to draw people's attention to, we have a career, campaign landing page called Be Your Own Boss. And I think it's www.aarp.org/Be Your Own Boss. And we just kind of did a refresh that really talks about it in just this way. Because I always say, again, we are a front door. And that landing page is a front door to these lanes that you can swim in. And I would offer to say that you can swim in these lanes interchangeably. It's just like, think about you being in a pool and you decide, I don't want to be in this lane. I want to move over to this lane. I want to move back to this lane. I want to move over to this third lane. I'm not so sure I like that third lane. I'm gonna come back to the first lane. And so you got to think about like where you are in your journey, in your working for yourself journey. And so, you might want to have a safe space in part-time work. And so, like you said, Martin, that's a paycheck. You know when it's coming. You're not going to miss it. And so while you are doing that part-time, you could be building your kind of small business, if you will. Like if you make jewelry and scarves that you indicated, or you're a baker, or you're a musician or writer, or whatever those talent skills that come across a lot of times in small business, that you can kind of play with that and see if there's a market for that, and see if you can really pay your rent and your mortgage with that, and see how your business kind of ebbs and flows. And so, like, is there a peak time when your product sells better than it does in other times of the year? And so, sometimes having that solid part-time is your security while you do the gig and the entrepreneurship, small business, as you might want to call it. And so, so when you start to merge into the gig, so, a lot of times we still think about gig work as, ride shares. And so that is still pretty popular. However, there are other opportunities to do your your gig work. And so, and also what's out there are these platforms that really help you be successful. And some of those platforms are Upwork, Fiverr, 99 Designs, Craigslist, TaskRabbit. Of course, you know, there's that Airbnb that has really kind of upticked and has allowed people to be kind of in business as they rent out their property. So, you know, I think that you can go in and out where it makes sense for the individual in these three buckets. And so and then hopefully you land where you're most comfortable and where you find the most success. But let me just say that none of this is really easy. I would say that probably the traditional work that we call, you know, the 9 to 5, the part-time, the full-time, that's your traditional work. Your non-traditional work is really kind of like doing your own thing. And it takes time to build that. And it takes time to build that audience. So, you know, be patient with yourself. But kind of, you know, like, again, talk to someone, get a mentor that can help you think through which lane you want to swim in and when it's time to move to another lane. And so that's really, really important. And the other key is network. You know, network with other people who are in your industry and doing some of the same things, and talk to them about, how did you move from this to this? How did you build your clients? How did you build your customer base? How did you get started? And so, you know, there's always this sense of fear in kind of taking that leap, but be assured that you're not the only one who's doing it. You're not the only one who has a sense of fear, and AARP is here to help.
All right, and thanks for that. Thanks for providing some of those resources. So would you say, are those the main resources, or are there other opportunities that people are taking advantage of when we think about the gig economy?
I think that those are those resources that I offered are platforms.
Okay.
And so those platforms really kind of help you get a solid start.
Okay.
But, you know, a lot of people just do this on their own. They go to the farmer's market. They set up at a local store. They talk to the store manager and say, can I put a little booth or table? You know, we're now in this space of pop-ups. There are a ton of pop-ups, you know, to test your product, to see if you have a market. And so, and, you know, you have friends and family. You can allow them to host something in their home for you, or you host something in your home. And so those are just structured platforms that are there to help you. That's right, podcasts. There are podcasts to help you. So there's just a plethora of resources now that can really kind of help you get your footing.
Okay, that's good to know. Right. And I can imagine people are doing podcasts specifically on gig work to tell you how to do it, and blogs as well. So they can satisfy whatever your learning method is, whether you'd like to watch a video on YouTube, listen to a podcast, or read a blog. There are people that can help you with the journey and walk you through step by step how to do it. Because there are people who've mastered some of these gig work platforms. And what they do is they give you all the tips that you need. So if you were to look up, you know, how to be successful using Instacart, on YouTube, there'll be people who will give you step-by-step directions on what to do. So thanks for sharing that, because that's important so that people know this is what I do to maximize my ability or learn even more about what to do. Now, another thing.
Martin, I want to add that, you know, YouTube, in the world of YouTube, you can learn anything you want.
They call it YouTube University.
YouTube University.
YouTube University. There's so much good knowledge there, and people are willing to share it. That's the great thing about it. And when we talk about working from home, because we know so many people, on top of having just flexibility and schedule, they'd love to be able to work from home as well. Are there places where we can find these types of opportunities?
Yes. So you can, in terms of working from home opportunities, I would say those platforms that I shared are places that those platforms talk about working from home. I would also Google platforms to help you work from home, but I will also direct you to our .org, AARP.org/work, where we have content around great opportunities to work from home. And so really they kind of give you like, what are these ideal work from home opportunities? And so, and do those work. Like, for example, a virtual assistant is a great work from home opportunity. A dog walker, a writer, well, I don't know about a photographer necessarily working from home, but you think about a transcriber. So those really are opportunities that you can leverage to work right from your house.
Okay, that makes sense. And I want to just kind of quickly give a quick little bit of financial information. When we talk about working from home, the gig economy, a lot of people are wondering how are we paying taxes on these with these opportunities? Because a lot of them they will not take taxes out, or in entrepreneurship, you're taking care of taxes yourself. Well, just so you know, the IRS does offer estimated quarterly tax payments where you can they have calculators that'll help you estimate how much you're going to pay per quarter, and you can pay in. So if you expect to owe because you are doing some additional side work, or you're full-time in the gig economy and taxes aren't being taken out, then in that case, you can take advantage of the IRS Form 1040 ES and pay your quarterly taxes in advance so that you're not hit with that huge tax event when you're after you've been contracting or doing gig work. So keep that in mind. There are opportunities to pay your taxes in advance so that you're not hit with a massive tax bill come tax season. So that's something to keep in mind. Some of the other things that I'd like to mention is when it comes to benefits, and when it comes to benefits when you're working from, when you're either in the gig economy full-time or you're a full-time entrepreneur, when it comes to the gig economy, depending on the amount of money you're making within the company, if you're taking this on as what could perceive to be full-time, then most of the platforms will offer you benefits. They'll offer you some way of taking advantage of some benefits, and they'll offer you opportunities they'll offer you retirement savings opportunities. So that's something to keep in mind. So when you are taking it on full-time, you'll get those opportunities through the platforms. So keep that in mind. If you don't have the opportunity through the platform to save for retirement, then you will want to take advantage of your individual retirement account so that you can continue to save while you're continuing to work and make money for yourself. So and then you could also, one last thing is depending on the state that you live in, there are states that provide auto individual retirement accounts for full-time gig workers. There are about 8 states that offer auto individual retirement accounts, and I'll make sure that I share those with you before we finish up our segment here. So let's, Felicia, I'd love to hear a little bit more from you, just as we think about someone, like you say, you focus on entrepreneurship, and you spend a lot of time working on entrepreneurship education. So what are some of the things that we can learn about starting a business later in life? I know you interview lots of entrepreneurs, you get to engage with a lot of entrepreneurs. So tell us a little bit more about starting businesses later in life, and then also how could AARP help with that?
Sure. Well, let me just say, as it relates to starting a business, it's never too late. It's never too late to pursue your passion. It's never too late to use what you've garnered for the past 30 years, 25, 30 years, to parlay that into a revenue generating opportunity. And so one of the things that we've found since I've been doing this work is there is a sense of fear. Like, can I do this? You absolutely can. And so as I said as I said earlier, network, talk to other people who are doing what you want to do and see how that can be a possibility for you. And so I started a series about 2 years ago called Meet the Founders. And those founders that I've met really talk about their journey. And they talk about how they were right where many of you all are around starting a business, and how they just how this business really sometimes landed in their lap. And so I encourage you to listen to that series at smallbiz.org/meet the founder, and just hear their journey. Listen to where they were and where they are now, a lot of the lessons learned, best practices, and how they're still learning along this journey of being a business owner. And Martin, what was the other part of that question?
Just some of the, how's, could AARP, what are some ways that AARP can help with that as well?
Absolutely. So we've been putting in the chat about the Small Business Resource Center for the 50 plus. And there's a chock full of information there. Chock full. We have I call them tip sheets, but we also call them action plans that you can download. So I encourage you to go download any and all that you need. We have the Meet the Founders. We have webinars. We have webinars on demand. We have information from other organizations that support people who want to do just this. We have opportunities around other external training. We talk about funding, because we know at some point, if you're going to be in business, you're going to need capital. And so there are opportunities to tap into organizations that provide access to capital, as well as like accelerator programs, training programs, learning programs, all that is necessary to arm you with the right information that you need. We also launched a newsletter, and that's at aarp.org/smallbiz, that's BIZ newsletter. And that is news you can use. And every quarter, we send that out where we talk about a founder, we talk about grant opportunities, we talk about some of our webinars that are forthcoming, or those that we've hosted, how to work with this AARP supplier diversity. We talk about the Freelance Resource Center. So we have a chock full of information to really arm you with what you need to get that right start.
That's awesome. That is amazing to hear. And what I'm hearing is that there is a significant amount of questions for us, Felicia. So we're going to get ready to start with questions. The next thing that I want to just mention is the last thing that I'll mention is our AARP jobs board. We do have an opportunity. If you're looking for part-time employment, you could take advantage of take a look at the AARP jobs board, and the links that we've dropped in the chat also have our jobs board information there. So please take a look at that as well, and look at some of the great opportunities that are around that could help you out. And in the meantime, I'm going to turn it back over to Vince, because we want to make sure that we have time to answer your questions. I do understand that we have some questions.
All right. Thanks so much, Martin and Felicia. The information you've shared has given me a lot to think about. So let's go over to the chat. Jacqueline, what questions do you see for Martin and Felicia?
Okay. For one thing there, I have a couple questions regarding, and I'll get into them specifically. But maybe as a lead, and I have a couple of questions about AB5. Can one of you give us a little information as to what that is so that these questions will apply? Hello?
What is that? What is it again? Martin might be better suited to answer that. But
AB5.
So I'm not sure what
Okay.
that may be one. Yeah, we may have to take that one.
Okay, I'll go on to another question, then we can kind of look at that. Okay. From YouTube, someone is asking for what is the risk of hiring independent contractors in California?
Go ahead, Martin.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. They said the risk of, so I'm not 100% sure about that. That one would be more of a legal question.
Yeah.
And that would be a little more EEOC related when it comes to contracting and hiring contractors for California.
Okay. Molly wants to know, what are gigs for 60-year-olds in major metro areas? What types of gigs? You mentioned quite a few.
So the way I would think about this is, first, start off with what is it that you like to do? Because many of you indicated that you wanted to use your experience. So think about the experience that you have, that you've garnered all over these many years. So that's the first thing I would do. And think about, again, what is it that and figure out how you can take what you know, what you love to do, and see if you can do that part-time or as a gig opportunity, and talk to people who are doing some of the similar things to know where they're doing it, how are they doing it, and how do they reach an audience for you to do more of it. And so it takes a little bit of research, to be honest, for you to really find out the best place for whatever it is you want to do that well. And so it's, for example, if you make jewelry, then of course we know Etsy is probably one of your best places to really kind of start. As a, it's a maker marketplace, and really figure out how to use that platform to your really well and to your advantage, because it's a crowded space. So I would talk to other users of those platforms to see how they've been able to yield success.
Yeah. Another question from YouTube. Gig work, how does it affect your car insurance? Like if you're an Instacart or an Uber driver, how does that affect your car insurance? Or DoorDash, something like that?
So what my limited knowledge, because every time I get in an Uber or a Lyft, I always ask some of those questions of the drivers, like, does the company pay your mileage? Does the company pay for wear and tear in your car? And so what I would say is, if you're interested in using any of these platforms where your automobile is going to be used, you make sure you ask all those questions up front about reimbursement, tolls, gas, mileage, repairs. Is there a percentage that they give you towards your repairs after so many miles? How do how do they reimburse you? How do you get paid? So it's critical that you research those platforms, ask the right questions before you jump in.
Yeah. Another question. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to add to that. And in most of those cases, when you're a full-time driver, your insurance will want to know that, and you do want to indicate that ahead of time, right? So you want to make it clear to your insurance that, hey, I am driving Uber full-time, so that they're aware of the mileage that you're putting in your car, because it's going to be more than kind of the average 12,000 miles, more than likely, that people are putting on a car per year. And there's going to be there could be some additional costs that's associated with that.
And let me also add too, which was, I did mean to add that when you start a business, and someone put in the chat, when you start an LLC, absolutely. When you start a business, you can use your vehicle as a write-off.
Good point. Another question that we have from one of our participants on YouTube: could you please give us some advice on how to navigate costs and the processes to secure a state license and incorporation to ease concerns of potential clients who are aware of AB5? There's a lot of questions about AB5.
Yeah. And now that I kind of understand where they're going with this, my response, I'm not a California resident, is that you consult with your local, maybe your local chamber or your local government about laws, rules, fees, costs, taxes around having a business in that state, because every state is different. And so I would, as Martin indicated, you might want to speak to a lawyer or legal expert to know what you are getting yourself into before you actually file for a business license or file for a business designation. Because once you file that business designation, that state is looking at you as a business owner. And so then they might be asking, did you make money? Are you going to pay us our taxes? Where's your business reside? Is it a home business? Do you rent a facility? So you really need to go to your local government about what are the laws and the rules and regulations around having a business.
Another question. Go ahead. I'll wait it.
No, I was just going to simply add to that. Usually, those small business resource centers. So, every state has their business resource centers. They're always a great resource when it comes to these types of things and having these conversations. Because you could, they're going to be abreast of any laws or anything that's going to cause an issue for you when it comes to operating your small business.
And I will say, what we learned from the pandemic is people start businesses without even knowing how to start a business. I mean, and that's the reality. Like people, and they tell you just start. But once you find yourself really kind of making money and really building this empire that you really want to make sure that you don't get yourself in illegal quagmires, because I mean, I always say there's two things we're never going to escape, and that's taxes and death. So, you make sure that you don't find yourself in a tax issue if you are a designated business and you are making money.
And I'll give one quick example, like a practical example of this. I had a individual that I knew. They started a business, and one of the things that they did is they went and got incorporated, and they weren't planning on buying their actual website for about another week. There are people who will actually buy websites for incorporated businesses and then resell them to the incorporated business for sometimes 10x the price that you would have paid for it. So if they would have just known in that moment, when they talked about a practical lesson to learn, if they would have known to purchase your website at the same time that you purchase your LLC under that exact name, then they wouldn't have been subject to paying. I think they ended up paying about $1,000 for a website that someone else may have bought for like 10 to 15 bucks, because at the time there was no name associated with it. Now, these are some of the things that you would learn from like a small business, a local small business resource center. They'll be able to have that conversation and make sure that you understand the process, right? If you buy your LLC, buy your website, which it's not really expensive to get incorporated. It's going to depend on the state, but these are some of the things that you want to know prior to getting started if you are launching a business.
Another question from one of our YouTube participants, does gig work affect Social Security? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, happy to. Oh, were you about to say something?
I was going to yield to you.
This is my space. Social Security is my lane. I love talking about this stuff. So when it comes to gig work, when it comes to any earned income and Social Security, first you have your income limits, right? So if you're already taking Social Security, if you are prior to your full retirement age, which is going to be between 66 and 67, that's when you're at your full retirement age. It varies based on when you were born. But when you are below your full retirement age, they will reduce your Social Security based on any money that you make above the earned income limit, which I'm going to confirm the amount, but I want to say it's $21,000. It's a little over $21,000. I believe it's $21,520. Any money that you make above that, they're going to reduce your Social Security. For every $1 you make above that, they're going to reduce it by $2. Now, here's the thing. You will receive that money later, but it's going to come in the form of your payments after you hit your full retirement age. Now, the other side is once you hit full retirement age, you can make as much money as you possibly want while also collecting your Social Security. So that's the plus side of Social Security. So it'll be reduced, and what I'd say is delayed because it's coming back to you later if you're under full retirement age. But once you hit full retirement age, you can continue to make as much money in gig work, entrepreneurship, or part-time or full-time work as you choose.
Okay.
After you hit the earnings limit. Let me just make sure I say that part.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit, DK wants everyone to talk about the federal legislation we should be concerned about that is trying to restrict their rights to be independent contractors, gig workers, like the PRO Act and the Department of Labor's pending rulemaking. There's a big push to make more people employees, which will affect our ability to run our small businesses.
This sounds, I think, again, we're talking about AB 5, which is, yep, I understand. And I do apologize. I wish we were we had someone on who could speak specifically to this legislation, because I know that this is important legislation. But and it does seem with this legislation, it looks like the plan is to kind of change that that ability, right? To kind of between when are you an independent contractor versus when you're considered an employee, and so that's the ongoing battle. So we unfortunately we can't speak a lot to it. We do understand that is the case with AB 5. So, but we'll have to hold all questions on that specific topic right now.
Okay. One gentleman wants to know, he says that age discrimination, did I say that already, is very real.
Yes.
And looking, and I can speak to that too. So can you give us a little information or advice on how to navigate around that? I know AARP has a job board specifically for people who are, but can you tell us a little bit more about that, how to navigate age discrimination?
So specifically, I don't know if they asked specifically around navigating, and so there are ways, of course, and so I presume you're talking about traditional employment, like applying for a job. Is that what I'm hearing?
I believe they are, yes.
Okay. And so, AARP has information, and let me just say, yes, we are fully aware that age discrimination is real. As an organization that supports the 50 plus, we recognize that, and we fight on that every day. We work with employers to help them understand the value of older workers, and to get them to not discriminate against older workers. And so we do have a number of resources at, I think on the job board, where you can learn how to age proof your resume and how to remove your year that you graduated from college, high school, if you don't have a degree, but just removing those dates that raise a red flag to employers. The other thing is, think about how to truncate your resume. Nobody's reading a 6-page resume anymore. 2 really is your maximum, is your max. And so think, and also think about how to look at the job description and match your skills to that job description. And unfortunately, you might need more than one resume to meet these various job descriptions, because we know that jobs are very different than they were, let's say 20, 30 years ago. And the types of jobs have changed. And so the types of skill sets that they say they have changed. So you might want to think about, like, what are some of those skill sets that are transferable to that job that you're applying for, to really make yourself stand out. And also I did 2 videos actually around how to talk about gaps in service, if you will. If you were in the job market, you came out of the job market. I did a video on that, and I will make sure that I get that to our AARP California office to make sure they have that, and really kind of how to nail that interview, how to talk about your skills in a way that is interesting, that's compelling, and that makes them want to hire you in spite of age.
Martin, nothing?
No.
Next question, will gig work affect what you pay on Medicare?
Alicia, actually, did you want to mention the employer pledge at all when we could?
So I can mention the employer pledge. The employer pledge program really quickly is a program where we recruit employers who say that they will not discriminate. And so we kind of give them a seal of a badge of honor, if you will, to say that these employers have stood up and said that we will not discriminate. And so, and many of those jobs that those employers have that are within that network are on the job board. So I encourage you to go to the AARP job board to look for some of those jobs where those employers that are part of our network are looking for older workers.
Thank you. YouTube question, is the wage cap for Social Security in addition to Social Security benefits or total of benefits?
The way your earned income limit is going to be, and I'm sorry, just repeat that question one more time. I want to make sure I answer it correctly.
Is the wage cap for Social Security in addition to Social Security benefits or total of benefit?
Okay, got it. So that earnings limit is going to be, it's not going to be in addition to what you're receiving from Social Security. That's going to be for any additional earnings. So that earnings limit captures the additional earnings. And I'm glad that came back up because I did want to clarify the numbers for that. It's $21,240 for 2023. So once you make that up, once you cross that amount, that's when they're going to reduce your benefits by $1 for every $2 that you earn above that limit. So just keep that in mind for 2023. And for the Medicare question, just so that you know, if you are a gig worker and you do not have an employer, what it will do is it's going to increase what you consider to pay for FICA taxes. So now you have to pay the employer and the employee portion of those taxes. So that's how it's going to affect your Medicare and Social Security when it comes to taxes. So that was a question that you asked a second ago, Jacqueline, and then we expound on the other answer.
That's okay. That's okay. Felicia, anything? Okay.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it back over to Vince. And Vince?
Yes, so before we close out, we'd like to ask, what new thing have you learned today about the gig economy? And tell us what you've learned from today's presentation. Please put it in the chat. I'll wait a couple minutes to see what people answer. Oh yes, Colette says AARP has lots of resources to browse. Yeah, we've been posting those links throughout the presentation. Many opportunities available, lots more research to do, websites to explore. Just don't, we got this. All right. Cool. So please give us feedback on today's program by completing our short survey. Click on the link in the chat. That link should be coming up soon for the survey. That will be survey.cmix.com. I think it's coming. There it is. Okay, so that survey, please click on the link there and come back for our third Piggy Bank Essentials program on Thursday, August 24th, 2023 at 9 a.m. Pacific. So you'll hear more from Martin. And we invite you to check out some other upcoming AARP events. Tea and Coffee Tuesdays on Tuesday, June 13th at 9 a.m. Pacific for difficult conversations discussing money with your kids and grandkids. Martin Booker returns with Mary Liz Burns, certified behavioral finance specialist, to discuss why money conversations tend to be difficult and how to talk about finances with your kids in a productive way, the do's and the don'ts. Again, a big thank you to our guests, Martin Booker and Felicia Brown, our chat moderator, Jacqueline Cole, our volunteer production crew, Sarita Cardozo, our tech specialist, Connie Moore, the AARP staff, and you. Again, I'm Vince King, your AARP volunteer host. Thank you for joining us today.